Well, in the lead up to the election, we've also talked a lot about bond referendums on ballots across the Carolinas. There's also something we've heard a lot about recently after that historic bond vote that passed last year for CMS. But you may not know exactly what that means, so we're going to break it down for you. First, here's what it doesn't mean. When you vote on a bond referendum for a particular government project, you aren't necessarily voting on whether that project happens in the first place. What you are voting for is how the government pays for it. In this case, through selling bonds. In other words, taking out a loan. For example, along with the tax referendum our Anna King just told us about there, York County also has a bond vote on the ballot for school projects. York County is asking voters to approve the sale of at least $90 million worth of bonds. So that means they hope voters will allow the government to borrow $90 million to fund these new school projects. So why borrow the money? Governments say that this allows them to put less stress on their budgets, paying off the loans over time and still having money in the budget over other priorities. Of course, borrowing money costs money. Governments will have to pay interest on those loans. And sometimes they decide to do so by raising taxes. So if that's the case, 60% of voters have to say yes instead of a typical simple majority. That happened with last year's CMS bond referendum. 63% of voters approved the massive $2.5 billion package and also to raise property taxes by 3 cents to help pay for it. Thankfully, governments are typically charged lower interest rates for these bonds. And finally, what happens if a bond referendum doesn't pass? In some cases, the projects will be paused or eliminated altogether if there's not enough room in the budget to pay for them. But in other cases, a municipality may even raise taxes on their own to help boost revenue. Nick?
All right.